Now, there's a recent article out in Politico that talks about Henry Kissinger, who is essentially a war criminal, let's put it out there, and a horrendous person. Now, this is also a person that has way too much influence in our current foreign policy issues. Even President Obama sought Henry Kissinger's advice on some of the different foreign policy issues. So, look, he's got too much influence in our administration. He had too much influence in former administrations. And now, apparently, he'll be having some influence in the Trump administration as well. Now, the article basically paints him as not only an ally to Vladimir Putin, oh, here comes the Russians, but now Donald Trump. Now, I want to read some of this article. Now, they write, as Putin climbed the ranks in the Kremlin, eventually becoming more the autocratic president he is today, he and Kissinger kept up a warm rapport, even as the United States and Russia grew further apart. Kissinger is one of the few Americans to meet frequently with Putin. One former U.S. ambassador recently recalled, along with movie star Steven Seagal and ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson, the likely next Secretary of State. Now, look, if you want to point out like what the article does, that Tillerson and Kissinger do have interests in Russia, that's fair, and I think it's actually really important. There are some big conflicts of interest here, and you don't have to be partisan to point that out. It's very clear. For example, Tillerson runs ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil happens to have a $1 million deal with oil in Russia, which of course is being hurt by the Obama administration's sanctions over the Russian invasion of Crimea. Okay, all those are facts. That's not a conspiracy, okay? Now, as Secretary of State, Tillerson can help facilitate more oil deals with Russia and other different countries, and that's of course why we call that a conflict of interest. See, that's literally the swamp, using your position of power to help your business interests. But of course, Donald Trump's cabinet seems to be full of these people. But back to Kissinger. Now, Politico explains that Trump may wind up as an ideal vessel for Kissinger, the architect of Detente with the Soviets in the 1970s, to realize his longstanding goal of warmer ties between the two Cold War adversaries. Now, look, am I against warmer relations? Well, let's just put it this way. I'm not in favor of war. However, I'm also against being overly friendly with dictatorial regimes. Regimes such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, Syria, dictatorial regimes of all stripes. So, again, I'd prefer to not go to war. What about you, Ron? Would you prefer not to go to war?
Yes.
Yeah.
I strongly prefer no war.
But okay, so we don't want to go to war, but that also doesn't mean that we want our country buddying up with Putin. Okay, and that's sort of a valid concern for people who are looking at Donald Trump's Russian conflicts of interest. Now, speaking of conflict of interest, Kissinger himself has one, according in regards to Russia. Now, his consulting firm, the article notes, Kissinger Associates, could end up seeing a bump in business from having access to powerful world leaders. For example, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. In fact, Politico writes, Kissinger and Trump have chatted on multiple occasions, including during at least one face-to-face meeting since the election. And Kissinger, to the surprise of many in the broader foreign policy establishment, has spoken admirably, albeit carefully, about the so-called Trump phenomena. Kissinger has also praised Trump's choice of Tillerson as the next Secretary of State, dismissing worries that the ExxonMobil chief is too close to the Kremlin. Quote, he would be useless at the head of Exxon if he was not friendly with Russia. I don't hear those concerns at all. Nobody can meet every single qualification for Secretary of State, I think is a good appointment. Now, I would happen to disagree. I don't like this appointment whatsoever for a lot of different reasons. Not only with the Russian ties, but of course, it being ExxonMobil and the different conflicts of interest you would have. Like you want to talk about corruption with, for example, the Clinton Foundation? That is incredibly fair, right? Because there were conflicts of interest as well with the foundation and Hillary Clinton being Secretary of State. This is also a clear conflict of interest where you have Rex Tillerson running ExxonMobil, now being Secretary of State and being able to, of course, facilitate different energy deals. Now, remember the big thing about Hillary Clinton pushing fracking around the world? The thing that we as progressives always get pissed off over her about? Well, now this will be Rex Tillerson pushing oil deals all over the world. Also, not a good thing, in my opinion. So, look, it's pretty easy to look at this and think, okay, Donald Trump, terrible, terrible. But again, let's not forget also another criticism that we've had of Hillary Clinton as progressives, that she was also close to Henry Kissinger. In fact, she considered him a mentor, and during the election also reached out to him for support that he was likely to provide if she had won the election. And of course, the whole point about this is that it really points to a greater problem within both the parties. And that is, of course, the embrace of neoliberal foreign policy ideals. How can the corporations make more money using U.S. foreign policy as their vehicle to make that money? Now, Kissinger, of course, he's got neoliberal, neoconservative views. So I think this whole them starting to buddy up together, that should worry a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Now the final point that I want to make on this is that Politico wants to gloss over that. And that's really what frustrates me about the media. Because with this, they're framing it as, hey, Kissinger likes Putin, Putin likes Trump, Russia, it's all Russia's fault. Well, of course, blatantly ignoring the democratic connection. So the whole problem here is that we have a government right now that is too entwined with neoliberalism and neoliberal interests, and that's putting their interests of the corporation over what we should actually do. And that's my big problem here.
Not just that, but I mean, strictly from, I mean, you brought up Clinton and her ties. I mean,
Yeah.
On the campaign trail, Donald Trump made these snake oil promises of going against the establishment, of taking on the establishment, of getting outsiders into politics. He's done none of that. He hasn't even taken office yet. And with all of his appointment, he has done none of that. He has given the GOP exactly what they wanted, which is totally what all of us expected. But Hillary Clinton didn't make those promises, and instead she embraced the Henry Kissingers. She embraced the Paul Wolfowitz and all these old establishment guard people that should have stayed in the woodwork years ago were crawling out, and they were crawling out for her, and that put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
It did.
And now, you know, Donald Trump doesn't need to hide it anymore because he won.
Yeah, and he's, again, doing the same thing that Hillary Clinton would have done. Basically, we had an election where we had no options. Donald Trump is just as much, the corporate tool and shill as Hillary Clinton would be. He just masked it behind populism because he's an entertainer. He's good at what he does. He's good at talking to people. He's good at relating to people. It goes back to that whole conversation.
He's good at branding.
It goes back
to the conversation. He is a professional brander.
Right. But again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the fact that reality TV culture, he's able to, of course, make himself larger than life and make people actually like him and agree with him and empathize with him just because he was on the TV.
He's not larger than life, Jeff. He's huge.
Did I get it wrong?
He's huge.
You know what he would tell me?
Wrong.
Yeah, that's what he would tell me. But the point stands. And this should concern a lot of people who are worried about using their positions of power in order to be able to push these neoliberal agendas. Because trust me, both parties are pushing this. And with the Republicans, of course, you get more neoconservatism, you get more interventionism militarily. But with both parties, you seem to be getting the same neoliberal package, and that's not what we want. That's not the direction that this country needs to go in. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.